Hi, thanks for being here. So I wanted to chat to you today about how to make the decision whether to elope or have a small micro wedding or have a big wedding. So today I've made a little bit of a presentation to guide you through some of the things that might be important to consider when making this decision. And keep in mind that I've got two separate perspectives that I'm coming from. I'm a wedding photographer who has photographed big weddings and small weddings. And also I myself had a kind of elopement, kind of small wedding, made some mistakes and blunders that I'll go through with you, and hopefully you'll be able to avoid some of those. So let's get going. So this is all about how to decide if elopement, micro wedding, or big wedding is for you. Now, the first rule of weddings, really the cardinal rule, is what do you want? What does your partner want? Okay, this is about you, whether it's you, just you and your partner, or you and 1,000 people. It's really just the most important thing is what you want. Okay, so that should be the most important consideration, always, always. The other thing is there are a number of factors that you need to consider. How important is each of these things to you and your partner? And if it's not important, that will tell you, which way you should go. So here's the ones that I've kind of come up with through research and through what I've observed. Number one is traditions. Number two, avoiding stress. Number three, family dynamics. Number four is money. Number five is planning. Number six, time and intimacy. Number seven, the dessert bar. That's kind of like my own number seven, but I have seen other people put it in their list of considerations too, so I'm putting it in there. Let's talk about traditions. So how important are traditions to you? In an elopement, there is a possibility to keep some traditions that you like. For instance, you can still do a first look. So that's, when you haven't seen each other, you've gotten ready without seeing each other and what you look like. So you're revealing each other for the first time, usually before the ceremony or sometimes at the ceremony. But you can still do your first look if that's important to you, even in an elopement. Okay, first dance. Bring a speaker, play your favorite tune, and voila, you've got your first couples dance. But it could just be you and your partner. It doesn't need a big audience there or any kind of audience there. You can bring along a photographer or videographer and have the photographs of the first dance and still not have the guests there. Okay? Cake cutting. Some people who choose to elope have a cake. Many people do, actually. They could have a mini cake or some kind of other desserts, and you can still do your cake cutting and feeding each other if that's important to you. And you can still do the champagne popping. All of these things can be done in an elopement. The micro wedding affords for a couple of other traditions, like for instance having a wedding party, a maid of honor or best man or whatever it is that you have, like helpers with you. You can incorporate that tradition in a micro wedding. Micro weddings are usually like up to 10 people, maybe a couple more. Usually it's very immediate family and friends. All right. You can even have dances with parents. If your parents are invited to your micro wedding, you can have that tradition too. And then for big weddings, really the sky's the limit. The two that come to mind right away are bouquet toss and garter throw. Those two are a bit, they're sort of outdated. A lot of the couples that I'm photographing these days don't have these in their weddings, even if it is a big guest list. But some do. Some will include them ironically because they're a lot of fun. They give a lot of fun photos. They can be super tacky and cheesy, and the whole tradition is kind of silly, and so some people just like to turn it on its face and just get them done like ironically. But these are just two that I came up with off the top of my head. There's a lot of other traditions that you can incorporate in a bigger wedding, like games with the guests, singing per table, all these kind of things, right? So just how important is tradition to you and doing things the way everybody has been doing them for decades? If it's important to you to incorporate tradition, then maybe you can look at how, what traditions you can keep based on the size of the wedding you're planning. Okay, let's talk about stress, particularly avoiding stress. Many couples who choose to elope give the reason that it's less stressful. And that is true for the most part. So an elopement is smaller. It requires less planning for the most part. And there's definitely less chance of family feuding at your wedding. There's always a risk of offending family or friends if you tell them you're eloping, but you're not going to selectively offend others while inviting, some and not inviting others, because an elopement is really just you and your partner. So everybody just kind of realizes like, okay, nobody's invited. That's no hard feelings then. So in terms of stress, eloping is probably the least stressful. Micro weddings or small intimate weddings, they can also be less stressful because you're not taking care of a million little details and a big group of people that you're trying to coordinate for. And again, you can kind of come up to some stress of like, who do I invite? How many people? But you're not going to experience the bigger stress of having to coordinate a big wedding day and a big guest list. Okay, so basically in terms of stress, we're basically going this way, increasing stress as we go from elopement to big wedding. With big weddings, planning and coordinating can get pretty gnarly. So many people choose to have a wedding planner or at the very least a coordinator to run the day. Stresses will pop up, especially as the day nears by. And so that's why a lot of people choose to actually have a professional to work with them, to take care of all those little details so that they don't have to worry about everything for every single day leading up to the wedding and then including on the wedding. With a really big wedding, though, that you've got less chance of people feeling left out, especially if you're just kind of opening it up to everybody and their children. That is more difficult to do this year particularly, but also especially if you're on a budget. So in general, bigger weddings tend to be more stressful. Family dynamics. So family drama can be a real concern for many people, especially when you have bigger weddings, a bigger guest lists. There's always going to be factors like who doesn't get along with who. My experience, though, as a photographer, and maybe I have had a more biased experience because the couples I photograph are really couples that they're awesome all around. Even for big weddings, I've noticed that there's not a whole lot of family drama. People usually check that at the door. So for the most part, whether it's, a smaller guest list or a bigger guest list, I haven't seen all that much drama, to be honest with you. Now, I do leave usually like an hour or two into the reception, so maybe I'm missing some stuff that happens later on at night, but I don't think so. I think for the most part, weddings are pretty happy events. With some rare exceptions, you're going to probably just have a whole bunch of people having a ton of fun and just celebrating you and your partner. And that's pretty much what it should be, right? But you can't avoid the fact that with an elopement, there's just really no family there. So there's just no way to have family drama if you don't have family there, right? So that's pretty much all I've got to say about that one. Money. Money's a big one. Now, there's not a full linear relationship between the size of your wedding and the budget, because even for an elopement, you're going to have some costs, right? So let's say, for example, you really value photography and videography, which a lot of eloping couples tell me that they do. So they really want the beautiful photographs, they want the beautiful venue, and maybe a beautiful video of their elopement. So you might splurge on those things, and meanwhile not have 150 people to feed and buy food for and all that stuff. So you will still have costs with an elopement, and some of those costs might be comparable to the costs you would have had in a big wedding, but you're cutting out larger chunks. So what do I have to say about money? Money is important if, for instance, like by having an elopement, you're able to save money to put a down payment on a house or something like that. I know some couples say that that's a concern for them, and that's a really big consideration. So you have to just be honest. Like maybe you have an elopement now, you put the deposit on the house, and in 5 years or 10 years, when you can afford to, you have a really big vow renewal bash or an anniversary bash with all your closest and farthest family and friends and have just a big party. So that's also a possibility. Now, when it comes to planning, you have to think of how important is planning to you. How much do you enjoy planning? So if you're an organizer, maybe you're an event planner, maybe that's what you do for work, then maybe planning your wedding is actually kind of a big deal and you want to do it and you're looking forward to it, in which case maybe an elopement is not enough planning for you, although there are ways to incorporate planning into an elopement. You can source your own vendors. So you just really have to be honest with yourself. Is this going to give you a lot of joy, or like I would say the majority of people who plan weddings, it can be a source of stress. So just figure out where you lie on that spectrum. How much do you enjoy planning? And just be really honest with yourself. And if planning is not your strength, you either downsize the wedding or you just go with a wedding planner. That's really all that there is about that. Time and intimacy is a big one. So really, the people who end up eloping, the couples who end up eloping, they always say that this is the most important thing that an elopement gave them, that time to spend with each other. With an elopement, obviously you've got all day to spend together. You can have your ceremony, and before and after, it's just you two. With a micro wedding or a small intimate wedding, you've got lots of time for each other, but you also have your closest family and friends there celebrating with you. So it might actually be the best of both worlds. With a big wedding, I'm not going to lie, there is a real risk of you not having enough time with your partner, not enough quality time in the hustle and bustle of the day. So what I always tell all the couples that I photograph is make sure you schedule intentional time with each other. And normally I say do this after the ceremony, maybe get a few photos after the ceremony, and then just you and your partner steal away, blame it on the photographer. I tell all the couples I photograph this, blame it on me. I will bring you food. I will sneak some hors d'oeuvres to you, and you just go off for 5-10 minutes and just whisper in each other's ear, or just don't say anything at all. Just be together and really let the specialness of the moment sink in, that you're now married, and just really be together quietly during that time. Because honestly, the rest of it is just going to blow by, and you're entertaining guests and you're trying to catch up with everybody in your big party, and you know, the moments just flit away. So make time for each other, because in a big wedding situation, that is precious to find time for just the two of you. Let's talk about the dessert. In fact, let's talk about the food, because I'm going to say yes to the donuts, yes to the cake, yes to the pizza, yes to the tacos. I just heard about a bride who had a taco bar at her wedding instead of a conventional sit-down dinner, which I love. And yeah, the idea is just to say yes to good food on your wedding, whether it's a big wedding or small wedding or an elopement. Make sure that you have the foods that you enjoy and incorporate food in a meaningful way into your wedding so you can be happy and fed, and definitely donuts. All right. I don't know if that cleared it up, so probably introduce some questions that maybe you didn't have already. What I want to do next is just take you through some real examples that I have come across in my research of couples and the kind of considerations they're making. So let's do that. We're going to look at some before and after opinions. Okay, so here's some decisions that people are making. This person said, yes, I consider eloping frequently. I'm in love with the idea of eloping as much as I'm in love with the idea of a big wedding. So she's got a conundrum. During COVID, I thought more about eloping. It's cheaper, but I won't have a bridal party. It's super intimate, but I don't get to see our families mingle at a large scale. It's simpler, but I'm enjoying the complex process of wedding planning and budgeting. So here is a bride who, for instance, loves planning and loves that complexity. It's not that much cheaper depending on how you plan it. I'd still want an expensive photographer. Ooh, I'm going to put a little heart here for that. I think that should be, deserves a big heart. Expensive photographer. Now, I probably wouldn't have picked this word, unless I know she meant like good photographer. Okay, and yes, with photography and videography, you do get what you pay for the most part. And having a good photographer there is, if it's important to you to have good family legacies and photos that you can access every day after your wedding, then absolutely. So I love that she pointed that out. Let's see some others. We did elope. It was great. And we've been married for almost 3 years. Yay! Big heart. Pros, less people to please. Yes, you can literally do it anywhere on your time. More intimate, and the ceremony day is truly about you and your spouse without the added drama and distractions. Oh, so she used the word drama. I could honestly go on and on about elopements. Love it. Cons, inevitably someone will be sad, mad, hurt that they weren't included. If you're not 100% sold on the idea, you could end up regretting it. All right, true, but I'm going to call this one because, you know what? There's a TED Talk about this, the paradox of choice. And whenever we make a choice of any kind, we always have the potential for regretting it. It's just something about the way our brains are set up. It's psychology, right? If we know that there was something else we could have chosen, we might be likely to say, oh, I should have picked that thing instead now in retrospect. But I would encourage you to realize that our brains are biased this way. They tend to regret the other thing that we didn't do. They always think like the grass is always greener. So I would encourage you to really tune in with your intuitions, your strengths, what you're good at, what seems good to you, what you want, what your partner wants. Plan your wedding that way and don't regret it. Okay, just trust yourself that you're making the right decision and don't second guess it in the future. That's it. We are eloping because we need to sell our house and buy another when we move. Also, family drama. Oh, this is the second person that's mentioning drama. Also, family drama is super stressful with my parents divorcing and his family being stressful to deal with. Wow, okay, so for her, eloping really made sense. Or him. I can't remember who this was. Pros, we get married and it's not super expensive with only immediate family. No one can be super upset. They weren't invited, and we can make it super fancy and over the top for just a few people. Ooh, super fancy. Picturing like ball gowns and fancy suits here with just like a small crowd of 5. That would be pretty epic. Cons, if we weren't postponing a big wedding, we would miss out on the big party and the extended family memories and photos. We love looking at our old family candid shots from our parents' weddings. I love that this person brought up candid shots because, to be honest, in the 70s, there's a lot of those pose photos in weddings, you know, with the flare pants and the big hair and the sideburns. And then there's not that many candid shots because that just wasn't the wedding style back then, you know? And now, like with wedding photojournalism, which is my genre of choice, candids are really what they're making a comeback, if I can say that. And without a doubt, whenever people think back to their wedding and to their wedding albums and what photos mean the most, it's always the candids. Just like ask the people around you, ask your parents, or people who have been married a while, ask them what are their favorite photos, and they're likely to tell you it's all the candids. So I love that this person mentioned that. Yes, before it was what we both wanted. Intimacy, don't have to please anyone else, cheaper, feels more special, and tailored to us. All right, so that's sort of the considerations that people are making. You're probably thinking along the same lines. Now let's look at what couples say after they have eloped. I found this really great article in Huffington Post that polled 21 couples who eloped on their experiences. And so I've just taken a few of them. We're going to go through them real quick and see what couples have to say about eloping. We wanted our ceremony to be about us and the promises we were making to each other. It was a wonderful day that allowed us to focus on one another and our love. Our photographers were so wonderful and even served as our witnesses so that it could be truly just the two of us. We celebrated later that evening with close family and had a reception about 6 months later, which were both wonderful. but saving our ceremony for just the two of us was perfect for us. So this is really nice because what they did was they just had a little bit of everything. They had their elopement, which was on their ceremony. Then they had just close family that evening for a very small celebration. And then they had the big bash 6 months later with a bigger crowd. So they kind of did all three. Maybe with less planning though. After attending many weddings of friends, we could see how couples become consumed trying to ensure that their guests have a great day. So true. Often to the detriment of the couple being able to enjoy the day themselves. This is so true. I've seen this happen so many times because you're like a host at the same time as getting married. So in a big wedding, you are trying to take care of people and make sure everybody's having a good time. And that's why I say making time for each other is very important if you're planning a big wedding. We wanted our day to be about us, and eloping allowed us to focus on what made us happy. Oh, that's so sweet. It made our wedding more intimate and just for us. It also took the pressure off having a big wedding day, which neither of us wanted, as we don't like to be on show. Eloping worked perfectly for us, as we could do exactly what we wanted and still have a party with friends and family when we got home to celebrate. So again, they had a bit of both. They don't like to be on show, which when you're faced with 200 guests can be kind of daunting. So they had a little elopement and then a little party. I love, look at the happiness on his face. It's pretty incredible. Deciding to go for a spontaneous elopement, especially during the historic passing of marriage equality in the U.S., turned out to be the best wedding decision we've made. The wedding was intimate, relaxed, and fun. We didn't feel the need to overthink anything, and we didn't have to spend a fortune. We eloped because we were getting too caught up in the planning details. Where should we go? What should we wear? Who should we invite? How much time should we give them to save up for the trip? We realized we should get back to the simplicity and true purpose of a wedding, namely us as a couple. It was our special time to celebrate with each other. Our commitment and focus on what made us happy. Relaxed in our dress with minimal decor and a very short guest list. In the end, we saved a ton, weren't in debt, and have outlasted some couples with more elaborate celebrations. Oh my gosh, yes. And yes to the shoes. I love this color. Oh my gosh, amazing. All right, we could not be happier about our decision to elope somewhere special in New York City. The wedding was small and intimate. It allowed us to relax and really enjoy our special day with only our closest friends and family present. After being together for 8 years as a couple, we'd already made a commitment to each other. Having a giant legal ceremony to prove that we were committed to each other felt like it was about 5 years too late. Also, we're pretty casual, easygoing, spontaneous people. I'm a big fan of weddings matching the couple. Eloping matches our style way better than a big ceremony. Yay to matching. So make sure you figure out what it is that your strengths are, what you enjoy, what's important to you, and match your wedding to that. Don't do it for other people. Do it for you. Okay? I think this is the last one. Liz and I decided that a small, intimate wedding was the right thing for us. We had talked about inviting some or all of our families, but at the time, marriage wasn't legal for same-sex couples in our state, which is still baffling to me, and it became quite an expense to think of inviting our families to join us elsewhere. Every time we tried to limit the guest list, there was always someone important we would be leaving out. We wanted to get married quickly, too, because we wanted the federal benefits that had become available to us at long last, and I'm so happy you did. Big heart. Oh, okay, this is the last one. By eliminating the pomp and circumstance, we shared the most special moment of our lives without stress. Lots of people are mentioning stress or pressure. It felt like we were in our own world without any distractions. Jillian and Nick, I agree with you. Look at this beautiful view. They get a big heart. Big heart. So this is taken from this article called 21 Couples Who Decided to Elope and Are Damn Glad They Did, from Huffington Post, written by Kelsey Borison. I just Google it. 21 couples who decided to elope and are damn glad they did. Damn glad. Now, how do you decide? Just trust yourself. Trust your intuition. Talk to your partner. Figure out what it is you want. And then fit everything around that. Okay? Number 1. By the way, this beautiful photograph was taken in a field just very nearby Kingston. It's in Tamworth. It's a brand new wedding elopement venue. So if you are looking, I have just the place for you. And I photographed this couple there just a couple of weeks ago. And they're so happy that they're glowing. And so is the field in the morning light. So beautiful, beautiful place. If you are thinking of getting married in Ontario in 2020 and you're struggling with whether to do small, elopement, big, postpone the big, I know it's challenging. So at the end of this little video, I'm gonna have a little link to reach me and just basically like chat with me about strategizing for your wedding. So you can do that after this is done. But before that, I just want to show you my own wedding story for those of you who care, because I did make some mistakes. And it was sort of an elopement, sort of not, so I'm just going to take you through it. I'm originally from Bulgaria, which means that we got married in Bulgaria. It was not really meant to be that way. We weren't even going to get married. We were young, and so we basically like had like a couple of days to like come up with the idea and plan it. It was actually my mom who came up with the idea because we were going away on holiday to Bulgaria. So literally 2 days before our trip, she was like, "Why don't you get married in Bulgaria?" And we were like, "Sure, why not?" So that's what happened, which meant that the entire side of my husband's family didn't know about it because we didn't know about it. And so, yeah, that was kind of weird. Like, we only had my immediate family there. But you know what? It was like, I don't really, like, the wedding was awesome. But, like, as you will tell from the photos, I don't actually have good photos from that day. So here's what happened. It started at my grandma's house. My mom did my hair and my makeup. I picked up this dress and the rings, and we arranged for the flowers, like, literally in, like, 2 hours on one morning. Like, we went for coffee and then we did like boom, 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 checked off all the chores for the wedding. We blinked up this rental car that we had, and that was pretty much how it started. Here we are in front of the beautiful wedding venue that looks a little bit prison-esque, and I am giving Fritz the look of love, which I think is just my resting face. But I'm going to give myself a heart for that because I think this is just love. This is really like, I love him and I want him to know, and I'm just focusing, channeling this look of love. Here we are. I'm signing the papers. I believe this guy here was our photographer who the City Hall supplied us with. But subsequently, the photos have gotten lost somewhere. So, and I don't believe that they were ever that good to begin with. Although I don't remember, actually. So, anyway, moral of the story is have a photographer if you value photographs. We've got a few that I'm happy my father snapped of us, and they're a bit blurry in some cases, but they're good. They serve a good purpose. And here we took like a shot of all the family. It was like my grandma's and my cousins mostly, and that's pretty much it. Here's that look of love. I don't know who it's directed to, but that was pretty much it. Then we headed to a restaurant, and we had lots of shots of Bulgarian plum brandy. Too many shots. I would highly encourage you not to drink too much on your wedding. It's a bit touch and go towards the end. And that's something that I wouldn't repeat. It was just that you had to take a shot with each new guest or something like that. So I was kind of pretending. But it's to make all the guests feel special, which again is a good reminder to all of you that you should do things for you and not necessarily just for your guests. Like, do not drink yourself into a stupor to please your guests. I've been to Italian weddings also where it's the same kind of tradition where you have to take a shot for every guest that you chat with. Like, that's, you know, as a mother, I just don't agree with that kind of tradition. So yeah, so here Fritz is impressing me with his ability to play this Bulgarian instrument called the kaval. I won't bore you too much. I'm just going to give you the conclusion of the story, which was that we continued to drink, and by the end of it, we're basically looking like this, and then like this. However, it all ended well. This was 17 years ago, and we're still in love. And now that I'm a wedding photographer, I kind of wish we could have had a bigger wedding. So I'm thinking like, you know, maybe in 10 years for our 25th, we will have something bigger. But I don't regret a single thing about it. Again, maybe with like the exception of the shots. So take home messages from this. Yeah, so all these photos were taken by my family. Our photographer's photos got lost somewhere. So yeah, so take home from me is basically like hire a professional if you value photography and videography. Like really don't skimp out on that, especially if you're going to have an elopement. I'm not saying that just because I'm biased. If you don't value photography, that's totally fine. Like, you know, you could just say like, I'm okay with like handing out like little mini cameras to my guests. They can take photos. In that case, like don't splurge. Don't get a photographer just because it's a tradition. It's one of those traditions that like, it just really depends on how important it is to you. But as a wedding photographer, I can tell you it's important to me now, and it's important to all the couples I photograph. So if it is, then just, you know, don't, just allow yourself to find the photographer of your dreams or a videographer of your dreams. And get prints. Get those photos printed. Don't keep them on your computer. Don't keep them as digital files. Put them up on the wall. Put them in a beautiful album. Maybe your photographer can do that for you. Just have access to those beautiful emotions so that you can be reminded of what an amazing day it was, whether it was an elopement or a big wedding or a micro wedding. And do what you love. For goodness sake, just follow your heart. Just do what you and your partner think is the best. Okay? Now, below this somewhere, there should be a button that will allow you to get in touch with me. You can also do that by following me on Instagram and just basically DMing me if you just want to have a chat. I am based in Ontario, Southern Ontario, so I'm in Kingston. I serve basically like all the way from Guelph to Ottawa and kind of like the Quebec border. I'd love to chat about weddings and big or small weddings and like talk about the different considerations. If you're looking for venues to elope in, I've got just the most beautiful place. It's literally just filled with flowers and butterflies, and I'm going to post some photos underneath this video of what that looks like just to maybe implant this kind of nice vision in your mind if you are looking for a local, beautiful, nature-filled spot. And yeah, basically I'm here. I'm super happy to chat about weddings and help you do research. So get in touch with me. You can email me. I'll leave all the links at the bottom of this video, so it shouldn't be difficult to find me. And I look forward to seeing you and hearing all about your plans and maybe helping you figure out what decision is best for you. Bye.